Hi, I'm Cristy Fincher, and welcome to my first video in my series for my double wedding ring quilt along. In this video today, I'm going to demonstrate how to prepare our templates for making each of our melon wedges and arches to construct each unit for the double wedding ring. For this quilt along, I will be using the Piec-lique technique, which was developed by my mom, Sharon Shamber. It's a new technique, well, newish. It's been around for more than 10 years, but it's starting to get a little bit more of a following and interest recently. So I'm demonstrating using the Piec-lique technique, which is a curved seam technique that doesn't require any tick marks, special curved feet, or plastic templates. You can create your own curved designs, and with this Piec-lique technique and the double wedding ring, it makes creating your double wedding ring, constructing it, much easier, in my opinion, than other techniques out there. Of course, if you find a technique you like, please go with it, but I'm going to demonstrate the double wedding ring using the Piec-lique technique. If you purchase the design and templates from Purple Daisies LLC or Sharon Shamber, it'll all come in a bag like this with the class handout on top, with your supplies needed and yardage needed for creating the large version of this quilt. For the quilt along, I'm going to be demonstrating how to make each unit, and it's all very repetitive, and you can really make your double wedding ring as big or as little as you would like. So for the fabric requirements, you can start out with just some scraps and make something, just make one ring, see how you like it before you commit to buying a lot of fabric to make a larger quilt. So when you open up your pattern, and I'm also working on getting it as a download, so please bear with me while we get that situated, but it will be available, and I'll provide a link when it is available. Inside of your bag, you'll have a CD, which is the tutorial that my mom put together way back in 2006 for this design and pattern and template. So this is her PDF, and it's a great resource as well. And inside, all folded up, you'll find freezer paper, printed freezer paper, with all of the templates for the entire quilt. It's a little overwhelming when you look at all of this, but if you look at it all at one time. But when you look at it just piece by piece, you see that everything, there are multiples of the arches, so you'll have them if you need them. And I always, just as a side note, recommend that you keep one ring set, one arch set for your large arch and your small arch. It'll be labeled as B and A as a master. So if you run out of the pre-printed ones, you can trace it or scan it and reprint it as you'd like. You can always order more of these through private email with me if you would like more printed ones. The printed ones aren't available without the CDs, so if you need more printed ones, feel free to send me an email. The black printed templates are our layout templates. So this is what we will be using to assemble each of our arches. And once our arches and melons are assembled, we'll be connecting them to the center piece here. The other templates here that are printed in light blue are our cutout and turning templates. If Piec-lique is very new to you, please bear with me. I'm going to walk you through each step. If you're familiar with Piec-lique, then you probably already understand what I mean by the turning templates and the cutting templates. We are going to be using freezer paper and our iron, and the iron, we're going to iron the freezer paper to the fabric to help us cut our pieces and turn the edges of our curved seams. So again, bear with me, walk through each step with me. You don't need to jump in and try and do everything as I do it. If it's your first time watching, just kind of go through it with me, and I think it'll start to make sense, and light bulbs will go off, and you'll be able to move forward. So when you have your templates like this, the black line templates aren't going to get any additional treatment as far as getting them prepared for layout. We'll cut them out when we're ready for them, just so we have them to do our layout here, and these two for cutting the fabric that will be the center of the melon, and then the center connecting the two melons. The templates I'm focusing on right now are our cutout and turning templates. When you look at the templates here, they are labeled paperless paper piecing, first step, second step, turning. So while they look the same, there are small differences. The piecing templates, which is the paperless paper piecing, we are going to be piecing our arches if you choose to do a pieced arch with no paper piecing. So I'm going to walk you through that step in a future video. But you'll see that this template has dashed lines next to solid lines, and that tells us that these are for pieced arches. Over here, the dashed lines are next to the outside curved seam. So we know that is for our turning to create our curve. There are multiples of each, so we will go ahead and cut apart first one of them that is for the paperless paper piecing, and one set that is for the turning. As you get ready to get your templates cut and pressed and ready to use with your fabric, there's a couple of supplies you're going to need. You'll need a hot, dry iron. I have my little Rowenta travel iron. It's my favorite iron to use for sewing and quilting stuff. You'll also need scissors that you can use for paper and or fabric. In this case, we are going to be just working with paper. So go ahead and have your scissors that you prefer for paper handy. And we'll cut apart out of my template here. Just rough cut one set of your turning templates and one set of your cutting or paperless paper piecing templates. Try and fold up the rest of it and just set them aside someplace safe for later. So I have those two rough cut and ready to work with. The next item you will need is some additional freezer paper. We are going to be making our templates using 2 layers of freezer paper. It gives us extra durability and they will last longer. So if you just use the one single piece of freezer paper, you might get 1, maybe 2 uses out of them. By doubling it up, I've gotten up to 8 uses out of them. Regular freezer paper that comes from the store on a roll, say by Reynolds or another type of freezer paper, and side note again, please do make sure it's freezer paper and not wax paper or parchment paper. The freezer paper that you'll get from the store is not the highest quality of freezer paper. Butcher freezer paper that you can get, if you have a friendly butcher, or something you can buy online that's higher quality and a heavier weight, is going to be more durable and will last more uses as well. My mom, Sharon Shamber, actually sells the heavier duty freezer paper on her website at sharonshamber.com. If you want to, you can order it from there. And it's great for so many uses beyond piece-lique. But the freezer paper you get that's from Reynolds will need to be pre-shrunk. This might sound a little strange, but freezer paper does shrink. It's very similar to fabric. So when you're working with freezer paper and you use it multiple times after each pressing or any application of starch, it will start to just shrink in just a little bit. But as you probably already know, a little bit one time plus a little bit the next time plus a little bit the next time ends up to be a lot as time goes on. So I recommend pre-shrinking your freezer paper. Again, sounds kind of odd, I know, but it's a really simple thing to do. Take your freezer paper just off the roll and some spray starch. I use Faultless, but you can use Niagara. There's a lot of spray starch brands out there. This is just my preference, and it's inexpensive, pretty easy to find. And spray a light spray onto your freezer paper. You don't need much, just a light spray. And you might notice when you spray it the first time, as the paper dampens, it will seize in just a little bit in the width. So once you have it wet, press your freezer paper on a hard pressing surface, not your soft pressing surfaces that you would use for clothing. You really need a hard, sturdy pressing surface. I have another blog post about making your own that I highly recommend you visiting. It's very, has a lot of good information. So you just pre-shrink it with your hot, dry iron. Steam here will just keep it damp. We want to get it nice and dry. If you order the freezer paper from my mom's website, it does not need to be pre-shrunk. You can if you'd like. And that will just help prevent any inaccuracies in the future. So this one's all ready to go. There we go. Now I'm going to get it ready for my templates. So again, once it's pre-shrunk, press it solidly to your your pressing surface. You want it to get stuck. Make sure you don't have anything underneath it. We want to get it nice and stuck. And just while I'm doing this, a note on pressing boards. I have lots of notes today, apparently. If you have batting, or what your pressing surface has underneath it, it should be cotton. Clothing pressing surfaces tend to be a poly blend, and while that's not a problem for clothing, for using it for fabric for our quilts, it can be a problem because polyester blend batting will reflect the heat back out. And when we're pressing our fabric, especially pressing with freezer paper, any heat reflected back out is going to keep things from getting the creases they need to get, or in the case of freezer paper, stop it from sticking from that plastic side, melting and sticking to your fabric. Cotton will absorb the heat and make it get as hot as it should for using the freezer paper and making it exactly how you need it to be. Don't panic if it takes a little coaxing to get the freezer paper to stick to your table. Don't mind those ripples, it is stuck. So we'll take one of the pieces and we're going to lay it on top of the freezer paper that is already pressed to the table. And the reason I'm doing that is to keep these two layers, as I'm pressing them together, more stable and to have less bubbles and any problems with separation. It is important, very, very important, that shiny sides are both down. We don't want to press shiny sides together and create just a really thick piece of paper. And we don't want to have the shiny side up and get it stuck on our iron. That's no good. So with shiny sides down, go ahead and press your pre-printed template set to your freezer paper. Just like this. You'll see Makes such a nice template when you have that bottom piece already pressed to your pressing surface. No bubbles. Oh, it's really nice. All right. There we go. And then get your second set. Make any trimmings as necessary. And there's no right or wrong way to place it. Just make sure it's all covered up on the paper. If you notice any bubbles, just kind of coax them out with the edge of your iron. All right, I think these are all set. I'm going to go ahead and rough cut them out, and we'll move on to the next step. Gently peel it off of your pressing surface. Keep that excess if you have any for a later use. Okay, we are about ready. The first set that we're going to start with is the paperless paper piecing first step. I'm going to go ahead and cut these out, and I'm going to, this is always something silly, not silly, haha, but some people take it for granted. There are 3 ways to cut on a line. It's kind of surprising, isn't it? Some people are like, oh yeah, Cristy, I already knew that. And then some people are like, well, I only thought there was 1 way to cut on a line. So 3 ways to cut on a line. In the middle of the line, number 1, to the right of the line, number 2, to the left of the line, number 3. To stay as accurate as possible with these templates, we are going to cut down the center of the solid blue line. It is a pretty thin line, so you should be able to stay on it pretty well. And if you need a rotary cut it, feel free. I prefer to cut it by hand with scissors. Just stay right in the middle of that solid blue line. And it's very important to keep your cuts as smooth as possible. Any jagged edges or gouges or wedges could potentially show up on the fabric side when we're doing our pressing. Just stay right on that solid blue line, right down the center. We don't want to cut that blue line all the way off and have our templates be too small. We don't want to be on the outside of the blue line and have it be too big. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cut this up, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, I have both of my paperless paper piecing first step templates cut into arches. The next step is to actually cut these apart. Each of these is going to be a template for one of your pieces of fabric for doing your pieced arch. If you're skipping the pieced arches for now, I want you to try out the improv wonky arches or doing your solid arches. Continue to watch if you'd like, or pass on through, but just remember it's here when you're ready to do your pieced arches. So we are going to again cut on the solid line. Please stay off of the dotted line. We're going to use that in a little bit, but right now we're going to cut right on this solid line. So go ahead, right down the center, and do that for both arches so they're completely cut apart. Nice straight line. This would be a great time to use the rotary if you would prefer, because these lines are perfectly straight. And they're all numbered and labeled for you, so you don't have to worry about trying to remember which goes where. Okay, so those are all ready. I like to separate them out into the A and B arches. They're all labeled with A or B next to the numbers, so you know where they go. And I'll keep them in separate piles. Sometimes I paper clip them together if I want to make sure I don't lose them. And then the next part of preparing your templates is cutting your turning arch. So exactly like we cut the other one is how we cut the turned one, but we are going to stop once the outside edge is cut. These do not need to be cut apart. So stay right on the center of that line and cut those all the way out. Make sure to keep your cut nice and smooth, especially on this part. Any jagged edges, wedges, unintentional cuts could show up in the fabric, because we are going to be using these to help us turn our curves. So take it nice and slow. Those are finished. So what we have done today is we've gotten our templates all prepared for doing our pieced arches, as well as turning our arches, whether we are going to be doing the improv arches or solid arches. And just for another sneak peek, here are a couple examples of the different types of arches and melon wedges I'm going to teach you. This is a traditionally pieced arch. I did it using paperless paper piecing. There's no paper piecing in this at all, which is so nice. You don't have to tear out all those pieces of paper once you've gotten all your arches together. Once they're sewn together, you're done. The next type that I'm going to show you is a solid arch, which is very fast and very easy. A lot of fun. This is a great way to just get started with the technique of piec-lique if you're a little intimidated or nervous or just don't have time to do the pieced arch. The next one is our improv pieced arch. There are a lot of improv piecing techniques out there. Whichever you prefer, you can make the arch out of. These I just whipped together some random cuts. I didn't measure at all, and sewed the strips together and cut out an arch very similar to how you would do a solid arch, but I'll demonstrate that in an upcoming video as well. So now that your templates are all prepared, we're going to be ready for our next step in creating our double wedding ring using the piec-lique technique, and that will be making our arches. I will see you next time. I hope you'll keep on staying with me for the quilt along, and if you have any questions, feel free to post a comment You can also reach me through my blog or my website, purpledaisiesllc.com. And my blog is So Much Like Mom. Thanks again. I will see you soon.